The Galactic Academy's Xenobiology lecture hall fell into a stunned silence as Crixthor, a Valerian exchange student, rose from his seat with what could only be described as murderous intent, radiating from his crystalline exoskeleton. His three eyes focused on the human girl sitting 2 rows ahead, the one who had dared to correct his thesis on predator evolution. "You dare contradict me, Deathworlder?" Crixthor's voice echoed through the amphitheater, his translator struggling to convey the venom in his words. In his primary manipulator appendage, a ceremonial blade gleamed under the artificial lighting, curved, serrated, and decidedly lethal by Valerian standards. Hannah looked up from her datapad, her brown eyes meeting the Valerian's hostile gaze with an expression that made Evan, sitting beside her, immediately tense. He knew that look. He'd seen it before during their survival training on Europa's ice fields. It was the look of someone who had grown up on Earth, where everything from the atmosphere to the wildlife actively tried to kill you on a daily basis. "Oh," Hannah said softly, a smile playing at the corners of her lips. "You brought a knife to an academic discussion. How quaint." Professor Zelnick's, the Therian instructor, began moving toward the emergency alert panel, his 4 legs carrying him with surprising speed for someone of his advanced age. But he wasn't fast enough. None of them were, really. Deathworlders operated on a different temporal scale when threatened. Crixthor lunged forward, his blade sweeping in an arc that would have been considered blindingly fast by any civilized species standards. In Valerian culture, such a challenge was perfectly legal, a way to settle academic disputes that had served his people for millennia. On his homeworld, such encounters rarely resulted in serious injury. Their thick exoskeletons ensured that he had made 2 critical miscalculations. First, he assumed Hannah would react like any other academy student, with fear, or perhaps a desperate attempt to flee. Second, he forgot that humans came from Earth, a Class 12 death world where evolution had sculpted them into persistence predators with reflexes honed by millions of years of surviving impossible odds. Hannah moved. To the other students, it appeared as though she simply flickered out of existence and reappeared behind Crixthor. Evan knew better. He'd watched her train. She had simply moved faster than their alien classmates' visual processing could track, her Earth-born nervous system operating at a speed that made her seem supernatural to species from gentler worlds. Her hand caught Crixthor's wrist mid-swing, and the crack that echoed through the lecture hall made several students gasp. The blade clattered to the floor, followed immediately by Crixthor himself as Hannah executed a textbook hip throw that sent the Valerian crashing into his own desk with enough force to shatter the composite material. "Lesson 1, Hannah said, her voice still carrying that unsettling calm as she pinned the much larger alien to the ground, with one knee pressed against his thorax. "On Earth we have a saying, don't bring a knife to a gunfight. The corollary is, don't bring any weapon to a fight with an unarmed human unless you're absolutely certain you can use it before we take it away from you." Crixthor wheezed, his breathing apparatus struggling against the pressure Hannah was applying. Around the lecture hall, students from a dozen different species watched in horrified fascination. Some had their recording devices active, already uploading the footage to the Academy's social networks. "Lesson 2, Hannah continued, reaching down to pick up the discarded blade. She held it up to the light, examining it with the critical eye of someone who had been handling weapons since childhood. "This is a beautiful piece of craftsmanship. The balance is excellent and the edge is incredibly sharp by most standards." She placed the blade against her palm and pressed down. Several students gasped as the edge bent rather than cut her skin. "But you're from a world with 0.37 standard gravity and an atmosphere so dense you can practically swim through it. Your metallurgy reflects that environment. This blade was designed to pierce your exoskeleton, which evolved in a world where dangerous means something very different than it does on Earth." Evan finally stood, making his way down to where Hannah had Crixthor pinned. He knew she wasn't trying to hurt the Valerian, not really. This was Hannah in teaching mode, which was somehow more terrifying than Hannah in combat mode. "Let me ask you something, Crixthor," Hannah said, her smile never wavering. "Do you know what the atmospheric pressure is on Earth?" The Valerian managed a weak negative gesture, 101.3 kilopascals at sea level. "Do you know what our gravity is?" Another negative, 9.8 meters per second squared. "Our sun bombards us with radiation that would give your species cancer within hours." Our oceans contain predators that can bite through steel. Our continents are home to microorganisms that can kill in days. Mammals that can gore you with horns or trample you with sheer mass. Reptiles with venom that shuts down nervous systems. And insects that carry diseases we haven't even named yet. Hannah stood, releasing Krixthor but keeping the blade. And that's not even mentioning the weather. Hurricanes, tornadoes, blizzards, tsunamis, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions. My homeworld is actively hostile to life, and yet humans thrived there. We didn't just survive. We conquered every ecosystem, climbed to the top of the food chain, and then looked at the stars and decided that wasn't enough. She extended a hand to help Krixthor up. The Valerian stared at it for a long moment before accepting, allowing the human girl who massed less than half his weight to pull him to his feet as if he were made of foam. So here's the real lesson, Hannah said, handing the blade back to him handle first. In this academy, we settle disputes with words, evidence, and academic rigor. We're all here to learn from each other. But if you ever pull a weapon on a human again, any human, remember that we're the species that looked at a world trying to kill us every single day and decided to make pets out of them. Predators. Professor Zelniks had finally reached the emergency panel, but his finger hovered over it uncertainly. The situation had resolved itself in less than 15 seconds. Evan caught Hannah's eye and shook his head with a mixture of amusement and exasperation. Did you really need to bend his knife with your bare hand? Hannah shrugged. I thought it made the point effectively. You're going to give these poor aliens nightmares. Better nightmares than funerals. She turned back to Krixthor, who was cradling his bent blade like a wounded child. For what it's worth, your thesis on predator evolution was actually quite good. You just missed the section on persistence hunting and endurance adaptation. Earth predators are unique because we didn't evolve to be the fastest or the strongest. We evolved to be relentless. We can track prey for days, run them to exhaustion, and our bodies are optimized for exactly that kind of sustained effort. Krixthor's translator crackled. You are not even angry? Angry? Hannah looked genuinely puzzled. You made a mistake. You learned from it. That's what we're here for. She smiled again, and this time it reached her eyes. Besides, on Earth, this would have barely qualified as a disagreement. We have sports more violent than this. The lecture hall remained silent as Hannah returned to her seat, pulling out her data pad as if nothing had happened. Professor Zelnick slowly lowered his hand from the emergency panel, his expression unreadable. Well, the professor said finally, his voice slightly shaky. I believe Miss Hannah has provided us with a far more practical demonstration of Deathworld adaptation than I had planned for today's curriculum. Class dismissed. As the students filed out, giving Hannah a wide berth, Evan leaned over to whisper, You know this is going to be all over the galactic net by tonight, right? Hannah didn't look up from her notes. Good. Maybe next time someone will think twice before bringing a knife to class. They're going to call us crazy. They're going to say humans are unstable, dangerous. Let them. Hannah finally met his gaze, and Evan saw the steel behind her eyes, the same steel that had carried humanity from the caves of Earth to the stars themselves. We're not here to make them comfortable. We're here to show them that survival isn't about being the biggest or the strongest. It's about being adaptable, resilient, and too stubborn to quit. HFY? Evan asked with a grin. Always, Hannah replied. And in the empty lecture hall, Krixthor's bent knife lay forgotten on the floor, a metal testament to the day a Valerian warrior learned that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't any blade or gun. It was the indomitable spirit forged in the crucible of the most dangerous world in the galaxy.